Well,
let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Look, that's why Emma's here.
That's good. Like I said.
That's why Emma's here, because everybody can't bring it. And it's been brought.
just to put it right out there.
On RadioOnFire. Okay. We fancy. Yes. Ow.
Ooh, polka dots.
Yes.
Right, it makes you start touching yourself.
All right. Welcome to another episode of A Side of Shade.
Hey.
Hey. Hey. We're back.
We're back.
And as you see, we have a guest with us. So first, I'm Krishna.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Kristen.
And we have the beautiful Emma with us.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. I'm here to represent all of white womanhood.
All of it.
Every single one.
And you know what's funny is that see, when black people, we don't want to represent everybody.
Oh,
but
well.
you okay with that?
Well, I went to Howard School of Social Work for my master's degree,
Okay.
and so I have experience.
You have experience.
I have experience
representing all the white hood.
Everyone.
So you are everything about white, everything white. You're represented. Got it.
Yes.
So tonight, as you see, we have our special guest Emma, and we are talking about just conversations, just a candid conversation between white and black women, and it's well, we titled it "Sista to Sister." Oh, how cute! But this kind of came about because we were having a conversation about just the differences. What does it mean to for me who didn't grow up around a lot of white people as far as schools and that sort of thing, and then when you enter the workplace, it's a different. You know, you have to be able to adjust it. And sometimes it's shell shock for some people.
And I got tired of representing
and
white
you
people.
got caught right because I would always go to Victoria as the neighborhood.
So what does this mean?
Right. So what is happening
right.
here?
So let's bring it up like an actual white person.
Right. To actually talk about it. And what was your interest in this conversation, Kristen?
Because I work at a university that is predominantly white, and I often have these interactions that I just don't really understand. And I've had some coworkers and employees that will come to me and say, well, no, it's just a difference in the culture and this, that, and third. So I just kind of wanted to get some questions asked and clear the air.
Yes. But I think, and the reason why we asked, because Emma is actually, we met Emma through Victoria, and we thought Emma would be the perfect person, because she's beautiful.
She's awesome.
But she's not only on the outside, but beautiful on the inside, and she's just a great person.
Yes.
No, you are, seriously. You're just a great person. Every time we're around her, I'm like, I just love Emma. Every time she has a great personality, she's just always bubbly, and just always willing to just be of service. One, you're a social worker, so that makes sense.
I am.
Always a good time.
Yes, and so we were like, well, who could we get? Because Victoria knew several white women that she could have gotten.
I did.
But we asked for Emma.
That's right. Because we wanted someone who could have the keep it real.
Right.
Like actually be honest. You know what I'm saying? And because of Emma's experience, which I'll let her explain, like we both navigate multiple spaces, multiple worlds.
Yes.
And so we're able to see different perspectives.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right. And so that's why we were excited about having Emma want to bring her perspective. So I think that just initially, can you just kind of give people a little background of like where you're from and that sort of thing, and maybe where did you grow up, so we can kind of get a perspective on that. Start there.
your whiteness.
Yeah.
My whiteness.
Well, first,
the entire whiteness.
Yeah.
I am honored to be here. I appreciate it so much. I grew up in Vermont, which growing up there in the 70s and 80s, it was the whitest state in the country. I don't think it is anymore, but I'm certain it's in the top 5. There were, I think, 3 black people in my high school. So growing up, Vermont is a very politically progressive place, but it's very easy to be progressive when there is no one to be actively racist against in your midst. And so when there isn't really other. So I came here to Baltimore for college, and it was actual culture shock. Being here and being around not just black people, but different kinds of people was a whole, including Republicans. I'd never actually met a Republican until I went to college. So it was different in so many ways. Starting in college, most of my girlfriends were black or not white. And then after college, moving to DC, becoming a social worker, I went to Howard School of Social Work. My life has become very different, and I have the privilege and the opportunity to have many people in my life, particularly black women, who call me out, who take me to task, who let me know about myself. So I feel like I do have a unique perspective on race, mostly because of the black women in my life who have taught me many, many things.
Awesome. And so I don't know. I mean, I think they may not know where we're from, because you're from.
I'm from upstate New York, Western New York. Similar. Say again.
Wow.
You hear that?
It starts and it begins.
See? I thought your mic was. Is this mic up right? No.
That's
Because she has a certain. It comes from New York, right?
But
see,
upstate.
that's the thing. I'm not from New York City. I'm from Western New York, so I'm actually from a small town, which is predominantly
He okay.
white.
He okay.
It doesn't matter.
It
New York
doesn't matter.
is New York. That's fine. That's fine.
She's like, what? Not just on my shoulder.
Yeah. No.
I never want to hear you say that.
Don't
Yeah,
ever.
I don't actually like that at all. But anyways, I was like one of 5, 10 black students in my class of like 140. So I had the opposite experience in the sense that I was that black kid who predominantly had white friends, but then I also had, like, because I played sports and did other things, I've always had my black girlfriends and my white girlfriends. And it's just, I've always sort of been in both spaces. And it was difficult growing up because I actually didn't want to go to an HBCU for undergrad because I didn't feel like I was black enough. So I steered clear of that. And so then it wasn't until after 4 years of undergrad that I was like, I'm tired of white people. I need to not be around my people. And then that's when I went to Howard.
Gotcha.
And then moved to DC. And like, so I really went through that whole, like when they talk about that racial identity development, like I literally went through that in the 90s.
So I grew up just as black.
Pretty much.
All black, everything. No, but I grew up in, I'm originally from Philly, but I grew up in PG County. So it was just,
Black
you
on
know,
black.
black on black crowd. No, I'm just playing. No, but
let us not go with that.
I'm not gonna start there with black. I ain't even gonna go there. But no, and for me, my experience, especially for like most of school, it was mainly black people. But when I went to high school, it was a mix of, it was a pretty diverse school. But we still hung together. I didn't hang with, now if I was in a class with other white people, of course, but they weren't my go-to, like I just knew them in class. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, we're gonna hang out this weekend. No, it was like, hey, we see them in class and that was it. And then when you see them at the reunion 10-year reunion, like, oh, and that's all, you know. But that was it. So that was just really the extent. So even in my neighborhood, it was all black. You know what I mean? And so, and then that, I guess we can talk about that at some point tonight. But then when you navigate through that and then when you go to work and go to school and all of that, you know, higher education, it's a totally different, it's culture shock when you now been thrust into, like, I'm looking for where are the black people and they're not there, you know. So how about you?
Well, I am from Northeast Baltimore. So yeah, mine is just as black as Philly. And the only pretty much white people that were in the schools that I went to were pretty much the teachers.
Right.
And the principal. I mean, and that was until graduating high. It wasn't until graduating high school that I started working in my trade as an esthetician that I met white women around my age and men around my age. So that was a culture shock for me as well, just trying to work and, you know, 'cause our functions were kind of different. So certain things, like certain conversations that just didn't make sense to me, I didn't get, and vice versa. So I think, you know, a lot of them had the same experience, like, you're different.
Right.
And it was one of those moments for me.
Right. And so I guess as we kind of talk about we wanted to talk about different subjects and just kind of just dive in and say, like, what are the differences? I mean, I know, and no doubt that as women, we might have a lot of similarities, similar experiences and that sort of thing, just by being women.
Yes.
But we clearly know there are some differences when it comes to, I feel like, being a black woman and then being a white woman, and how we navigate through whether, you know, work, relationships, you know, dating, you know, friendships, all of those things, because like you're saying, we do, like when you in a space where there's other cultures, you know, you may not be the first to say, girl, you know my grandmother, when I may not feel comfortable coming straight to you,
right?
Because I don't know what you're gonna think about my grandmother who was locked up. But if I come to you and I'm like, girl, now you know how our cousins be,
Like,
and you be like, girl,
welcome home party.
well, right,
and then,
but no, when you say we had a party, I'm like, which one? Was somebody getting out of jail? They was graduating, because those are the conversations. So immediately you feel comfortable.
Well, one of the things that I was saying, so as we were prepping for this, is that I feel like there's a natural suspicion that we have towards white women.
Yeah.
And so it sort of gets at what you're saying, that like I automatically give you the side eye because I don't know if you're coming at me authentically. I don't know if you understand me. Like there's just that automatic suspicion.
And do you really want to know who I am?
And do you really want to know?
And so
am I safe being myself in front of you?
And so, Emma, I don't know. Can you just kind of talk, like, what are your experiences when your first meeting of black women? Like, how does that interaction, how does that go?
It is not difficult for me I don't meet folks with suspicion. That's part of the privilege of being white and being a white woman. It's an extension of white privilege that you move through the world and everybody is presumably going to be happy to be around you. And for white women, we have the presumption that everybody is going to want to protect us. Even if we don't consciously think that is underlying so much of our motivation and how we behave in the world. So it's part of our...
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. So we often... Thank you. We often presume in meeting a black woman that they are going to want to talk to us and be our friend, and that we may have something to offer them. And so, you know, there's partly that. I do forget, this is part of my own bias in the own work I have to do around race, is that I am so comfortable with myself in many different racial experiences, but when I meet new black women, they don't know that about me. They don't have to be comfortable with me regardless of whether they know me or not. So that is something I always try to keep in mind and remind myself. I try to, you know, stay on things that I am an authority about, or what is specific to the situation that we're in, and not try to be friends with everyone. I'm pretty confident in myself at this point. I am 41 years old, so I don't need to impress anybody.
Right.
And that works for me fairly well.
That is one of the most attractive things. Like when I first met you, that's one of the things I remember. Like it was just. It was effortless. Like you are who you are, and it wasn't like I need to, you know, how we say put on your work voice. And then you go. It was none of that. It was, hey, how are you? Okay, nice to meet you. And it was just very warm. I never felt like it was these are my black girlfriends. Hey, girl, how you doing?
I appreciate that. It was a work in progress. You know, it was a work. And as I said before, I've had people call me out, both when you're a social worker in Washington, D.C., your clients, coworkers, supervisors are probably black women, and they will tell you about yourself in a heartbeat. So you learn a lot about people's perception of you and how to make yourself not to take up so much space, right? To humble yourself and to pull yourself back. If you want to be successful in real relationships, not just in, you know, the social work world of checking off boxes.
Right.
So, but there are key differences, right?
Right.
You know, the conversation you just had about family. For white people, and this is the rule, if I say someone is my cousin, that person is the child of my aunt and my uncle.
They are my actual cousin.
It was very confusing for me. Getting used, like, who are you talking? Your auntie. Like, who are you talking about?
Do you say auntie or aunt?
I say auntie now.
Oh, you say auntie now.
Now
but
I
you
say
say
auntie.
You say
no, aunt.
You say
aunt? Aunt.
But I think it was regional.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it was
Because I was like, okay.
No, now I say auntie.
Right, our cousins
I am an
are
auntie.
cousins.
I always say aunt.
You always say
auntie is new.
Yeah, auntie is new. I always say aunt, but I hear aunt.
There's a lot of words like that. The chicken issue is real. The seasoning issue. Let me tell you something. The potato salad at the cookout issue
Your potato salad
is so real.
Are there cranberries and raisins in the potato salad?
I do not eat cranberries. Raisins. I'm suspicious of those.
Okay.
But I'd like to say I also learned a long time ago, do not even offer to bring the potato salad.
No.
Because do not get in the conversation. You are not part of the conversation.
You have to be careful even if you're black. Also.
Exactly.
That's another.
So you think you white, you gonna bring one?
I have never.
You think the village gonna let you bring one?
And then been fussing back all that time, and then you gonna walk in with potato? No.
In my 41 years on this earth, no white person has ever said, "Oh, I don't eat just anybody's food." No, I won't eat just anybody's potato salad.
They don't say
that does not. No,
Right.
that is not a concern.
So,
No.
that's amazing. But you know what's funny? Let's go back. I want to go back to the family because we do those.
Please.
Because I do want, before we get to the chicken pot in the season or lack thereof.
Yes.
As far as family,
Yes.
how growing up, now I don't know how progressive your family was, and how are they with your relationships within the black community? Like, do they all have those kind of relationships as well? Is that what you were raised thinking and believing, or is that something that you had to really get on your own?
My family, so my parents are very progressive. My mother dated a black man when she was in high school in the 60s in Vermont, and had faced some family issues.
Black man that was
probably in the state.
Right, one of three.
But beyond that, it was very important to my mother, particularly having her children raised in Vermont, that we not be ignorant around issues of race. So when we were in elementary school, we read books about Harriet Tubman and Dr. King and Rosa Parks. She brought those in. Those were not in the schools. She was a part of bringing some things to the schools. My mother does a lot of anti-racism work in Vermont now. I'm incredibly proud of her. But it was really very key to them. My father is Jewish, so it was also not just about black people, but about bringing in different perspectives that were part of our family to the schools, to other students, to other kids who are in Vermont, and really making sure that we were aware. I mean, my mother marched in the Gay Pride Parade when I was in probably elementary school, and I was so embarrassed thinking people would think that she was gay, and now I'm so proud, you know, and it was about that for so many things. She was part of bringing in multicultural education to Vermont schools, to the school that I went to. So I had that basis from which to grow from, which was a huge advantage. Yes, mommy.
But I mean, and I think that's important as we look at what's happening today, and when I see I see a lot of young people, like some of these posts of, you know, young white, you know, boys and girls who are out here promoting a lot of this, you know, racist talk and that sort of thing. And so it just concerns me that we've lost, like, how can, because I'm thinking most of them grew up in the Obama presidency. So I'm like, where did you know,
I think
so
that's part of the problem, though. I think that there's a comfortability that people have without actually knowing the context or the history.
Yes,
Okay.
So it's
because
like
we've solved racism. We have a black
That's
president, therefore we don't need to do any
That's
more
right.
work.
So I can pretty much say whatever, and you won't take offense to it because, you know, we're post racism, and it's like that's not actually true.
Right. So let's you kind of brought up dating, your mom dating a black guy in school. So let's talk about that, because I feel like that's always a hot topic for everybody when it comes to, first of all, interracial dating. I mean, dating is one thing, but interracial dating is a big thing.
It's a big issue between black and white women.
And particularly, and I said even on this show, I always had an issue with it when I was growing up. And the real reason was, one, because of insecurity, because for me, I felt like, why is that person, the white woman, the better than a black woman? That was first off. Then the second thing was, I didn't like when I heard a black man say, I only date white women because of a black woman that does, like, I choose her because she ain't whatever, or I choose her because of this, and really labeling all black women as one thing because you had whatever bad experience. I said, well, if that's the case, we can all talk about what we ain't going. I mean, that could be we'll never date. So for me, that's where I was at. Now, as I have matured and feel a different way and evolve my way of thinking, it's not that. I just more have an issue when black men feel like that's important to say. Like, I must say, let me tell you why I'm dating a white woman. Like, why is that important?
And they love to tell us too. Oh yes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No, no,
off.
no.
I was gonna say, I couldn't wait for you.
I know, right?
Because I had this. I remember you bring this topic up before. And
Yes,
yes.
explain.
Yes.
So,
Please explain.
I've dated a mix of folks. I will say I never really dated a white guy since high school. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I very much understand where women of color, particularly black women, come from when it comes to this issue of interracial dating. It's not just about the individual man choosing to date whomever they're dating. It's about the beauty standards that come along with that is reinforced when you continually pick certain kinds of looks and when you equate certain kind of colors of skin and colors of eyes and hair to beauty, and make that a universal kind of experience. It's also about, though, what you hear a lot. So for instance, on dating sites, is black men who approach me and other white women and say things like, I only date white women because y'all are easier to deal with. Which means to me several things. It means that A, you won't date someone who looks like presumably what your mother looks like. There's something to me very difficult about that. But also you're then assuming that I am easy. And I am not an easy person to deal with. I'm quite difficult, as a matter of fact. But there is this perception that black women are too opinionated, too strong, too, you know, what have you, and thus I'm going to date a white woman who's going to be easier for me to control. And that's problematic on so many levels and is misogynistic. So that is the kind of individual that I do not associate with.
I love the fact that, like I said, we had this conversation before, that you brought that to my attention, because that's a perspective that I would have never seen it from. Like I always assumed that white women would assume it's a compliment that the black man is attracted to
Some
you.
do.
But
some
never
take pride.
did I look at it from that perspective. Like, so what do you mean by you think I'm
So have you seen
what
me?
does that
Oh,
exactly?
What are you saying about me?
There's some white women who really like to buy into that, and really own that pride. There's a self-confidence thing, and there's something to do with weight. I think that there's a lot of fat white women who, and I, as a fat white woman, I'm saying this, get attention from black men and attention you don't receive from other men, particularly white men. And so that means something to them, but then they take that piece of, oh, well, I'm better than black women. Women don't need to tear each other down in order to build yourself up, but that becomes part of the equation, right?
No, I was just gonna say to the sort of to tie into both your points that like a lot of it is taught, because when I was coming up, I didn't have an issue with it because again, growing up predominantly white, like we saw a lot of my black friends dated white, like it just, you know, the selection was small, so you work with what you got. But it wasn't until I was dating a black boy who then started dating a white girl, and when I came home and told my mom was like, that is literally like the worst thing that can happen to you.
Wow.
Like she was like she literally said that's like somebody spitting in your face for him to like leave you for what. And at that moment I was like, you're right. You know what I mean? Like,
this is the worst thing.
This is the worst thing. And then that literally for years, and then when I got to college, and it was exactly what you described. It was like the black boys, particularly the athletes and things like that, they were going for the white girls or the light skin, and it was very noticeable where it hadn't really been noticeable before, because like, okay, this is everybody's for themselves, like whatever. But my mindset had already shifted because my mom had planted that seed, and then my roommate, the same thing had happened to her, and that's how we bonded, because her first boyfriend left her for a white girl, and then that was the era.
So y'all was like,
so we were like,
I never knew that about you.
And then that Eric Jerome Dickey book that came out.
Oh,
cream in my coffee.
That's right. And we were like, yes, we were like, and we bonded over our hate of around interracial, like black men leaving us for white. And then from that point on, we were just like, And then even when I moved to DC, it was like we were like, wait, like why am I upset about this?
Right.
Like, what?
May I add something as well?
Yes.
There's also a real sexual component, and I'm a sex therapist, so I always am going to bring in the sexual component. White women, a part of our privilege is being more free traditionally when it comes to our sexuality,
especially
when it comes to particular sexual behaviors. We're able to talk about it, express it, do it, all these other things, and we have less consequences than what I perceive black women's consequences to be. And so that's also part of the perception that white women are freakier and will do all, particularly a certain activity. I don't know if we can say it. I won't say it. Oh, so that white girls suck dick and nobody else does, right?
Yes.
So first of all, that's not true. But we have a certain freedom in being able to express things and talk about things that both lead to that is all tied up in this.
Yes.
Right.
And it has to be acknowledged.
And I totally. So it's interesting because again we probably had this conversation, but that I've heard this comment before about, you know, the reason why black men wanted not the easier part, but easy and as far as what they would do for them, right?
Yes.
And so as to say that, you know, black women they don't want to get their hair messed up, so that's why they don't want to do this, that, and the other this kind of sex, whatever this, all of that. And my thing is that I think I actually shared it with Victoria, and I was saying I remember in high school that was like young black girls wasn't, even if they were around giving head and all that, they didn't talk about it. Right.
Yes.
But it wasn't one of those things where it was like it was something that you took pride in doing. Whereas for our white counterparts, that was something to think, because their whole thing was not getting pregnant.
That's right.
And we like, I'd rather get pregnant than get but that was because it was it was one of those acts where it wasn't, it's like grown people stuff. Like, you don't just be in high school doing I'm just saying, like, that was the perception. It was grown people stuff, but yeah, you out here having sex with God knows who and getting pregnant. But that's neither here nor there. We can talk about teenage pregnancy another night.
We certainly should. Yes.
But you know what I mean? But that was the perception. Like,
Yes.
back then, girl, I remember in high school, it was like certain, you just didn't do, like, you, and if you did, it was like real secret. Like, you better not ever tell nobody what, like, that, like, it just wasn't, it was a shame behind that. Yeah. And so whereas but what's interesting, like you're saying, the privilege behind being free to do this as a white woman,
we face
a white
less
girl,
consequences.
it is
absolutely,
because you weren't shamed.
And I think
you know what I mean? Like,
not in the same way.
Right. Stereotype that lived on.
It did.
Because in my generation, that wasn't the case. Like, we grew up in the, you know, Lil' Kim, Foxy Brown, where, you know, Trina, like,
so you
situation where, you know, that was fine.
Yeah. How much can you take?
How much can you take? Right, all right.
I mean,
you bananas down the throat.
All right. Yes. And we like, oh my God.
How good is
this
it?
What they doing?
But that stereotype was still true.
Yeah.
Like, my generation still thought that stereotype about white women being easier and being more willing to, but it was never shaming, I think, in my generation. Like, that's completely different. But I think that's also the case with, like you were saying, about the discrimination and the racism and thinking, oh, we had Obama in the situation, so we good. I think if that's something you've been raised and your grandmother thinks this and your mother thinks this, of course, as the daughter, it's going to be trickled down to you in some kind of way. So it's just amazing how different.
I'm glad you brought up your generation.
It's not that far.
No, it's not.
That's
but your
super
generation
important.
is important, because I would be interested to know, because me and Victoria had grown in different, in the same era, but growing in different areas, regions. So for you, what do you think as far as being in your age group, that your experience with white women? Like, what in terms of the like, was there a competition of, like, I can't believe he left me for so and so? Was that even a?
I don't think. Okay. So yes and no. I feel like my generation is one or two ways, depending on where you grow up. Because I often have a conversation with my sister about the Dundalk area versus the Northeast and East Baltimore area. I think, as far as I was concerned, because it was mostly black people that we grew up around, there were still certain things you don't say. Like, a white person's not saying nigga around me. I don't see a lot of interracial, you know, dating and things like that. And working downtown and closer to the Dundalk area, I felt like I experienced, because one of my first jobs professionally was in Canton. And it was definitely a culture shock, because I had a coworker who was a white woman who literally, because we do have this professional, like, voice, or this quote unquote white woman appearance, or a voice that we put on when we're at work, when this is your work voice, this is your work persona. The white woman came to me and literally told me, she was like, I just don't even understand why you talk the way you do. Like, I'm white and I'm more black than you are. And I literally had to find myself pulling her up outside of my job, because again, I grew up in an area where professionally, yes, you need to speak a certain way, you need to look a certain way, you need to work a little bit harder, those kind of things. So when I had to address her outside of work, literally, like, step outside, it was, the work voice is off. Like, don't ever in your life think you can ever check me like that. Like, this is where I'm from. Let's be clear. However, there's a difference between being what you consider your blackness or your black voice and professional. So I've had a lot of those experiences where I feel like because of the culture and because of, you know, us being, my generation being a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more fluid as far as, you know, being able to mix and mingle with different races, that it was, I still feel like you have those moments where people try you, where people will say, overstep your boundaries. Like, you can have an open conversation, but there's a difference between that and being disrespectful. You can ask me about my hair and I'll tell you about it. You can ask me about why things are different and I'll tell you, but there's a difference between that and saying, ooh, yeah, you know, y'all black people this and this and yeah.
You're not the black.
Another thing I've learned, when a black woman says, let me be clear, you better step back.
Not let me
You're
be
about
clear.
to hear about yourself.
It was literally like,
For our conversation.
Right.
So now that so dating, I think we all, I feel like still with interracial dating, I was thinking that when it comes to white men dating black women, it's a totally different
It's a totally
vibe.
different thing. I don't
And
think
what-
we don't
even think, I don't feel like we give it that, I don't know, do we give it that much energy? I don't know if we do. You think?
I don't think white women give it that much energy. I don't
They don't
I don't
think
think
about
we
it?
feel an ownership over our men in the same
okay.
way. It's not a need of protecting our community. We're not fighting against any
That's a
beauty
good point.
standard, although the beauty standards in some ways have changed to fuller lips, big butt, all these different
Don't even
things.
get me started.
But we don't need to defend our community, our people in the same
You
way.
just another white boy.
but
Yeah,
isn't it the
and
culture? Like, we as black women, we are taught and raised to fight
To
for
protect
our
our
black
men.
exactly.
Yeah.
protect
We
our
don't need
black
to protect.
men.
They're supposed to be protecting
So
us.
now we done did all this fighting and protecting for you.
And they don't give a shit about you.
And you gonna leave?
Right. But I think that you bring up a good point about the ownership piece. I think that I feel like everything about being black is how we own our stuff. I feel like that's important to us to, you know, this is ours. And so that's why, you know, when things like Black Panther, like this is like we are proud of this because we own it. This is everything about us. And so you're right. And I didn't think about just the ownership of the men, and that's why it's like I'm not gonna just give up. And part of it is who we got to give up, because if you got to give up people with big money, big dollars, the professionals, the this, it's like, and you leave us with Pookie in them.
Absolutely.
We don't want Pookie.
And I should say there are ways.
I mean, I ain't got nothing against Pookie.
Right.
We love.
No.
But when I see you with Pookie, I really don't care.
Right. No. It's particular. I should say there are ways in which white people and white women are fighting to protect our community. I mean, the whole thing about the Confederate flag, the whole thing about those goddamn statues, the whole thing, you know, there's so many pieces in which we choose to fight to protect our community and our needs and our personhood. But it doesn't come, very rarely does it come down to interracial relationships, except for the very true white supremacists.
Gotcha.
So is there ever a woke moment for the white culture? Like, because and based on a conversation that we had, one of the episodes that we had previously was how to determine whether or not you're woke and what it means to be, what was the term we used?
What?
Pro-black. being
Oh,
pro-black.
yeah.
Is there ever a sense besides the white supremacists where there are you woke as far as the white culture or pro-white? And what does that look like?
That
And
is
is
such.
it okay to be?
That's such a good question.
Yeah, especially since you're a person who has a lot of black or, you know, friends of different races.
That's such a good question. I'm thinking about a couple of different things. I mean, I think that there is, you know, with Trump and presidency, there's a lot more white people who are coming into their full-blown white supremacist stage of consciousness or de-staging of consciousness because they're embracing this part of themselves. So that could be a wokeness maybe that you're talking about, or an asleepness, if you will. I think sometimes for people embracing their heritage, so being Irish, being German, and really connecting to that can sometimes be it. But I don't know that there's a wokeness as a standard issue white person with all our entrenched white supremacy that is inherent within white people. I don't know that there's a way that we can say I am becoming pro-white without going to an extreme. I don't think it's nearly the same thing. We haven't had to do that. Our consciousness, all of our society in the United States is really based around, most of it is based already around our white identity and really giving us those opportunities. So we don't need to have the same kind of awakening, you know?
So, I'm sorry. I need to get the phone number in case somebody want to call in. Please call in at 404-436-1277. 404-436-1277. I think you make a good point, and I'm wondering do you think that's the same for people being like people of color? Like, is there a point where you're just being too black or too woke even in the black community? Like, because if you measure it along those lines of being too white, you know what I mean? Like, there's a point of being, but is that okay for you to say? See, that's the thing. Like, is it okay for within cultural? No, because if you think about culture, is it okay for me to say, girl, you being too white, or you just too such
you may say that. I may not say that to you.
And why do you think that is?
I don't get to comment on people of color's choices around their racial identity. I don't get to, I can have whatever opinion I want to, and I get to keep it to myself. Just like I may never say the N-word ever, I don't get to have a perspective that is shared and that you have to be a part of around your blackness and your racial identity and however pro-black you want to go.
So then how do you then that's why it was offensive when that woman said, I talk black. Like, you and I can say that to each other, right? Because
I can tease Victoria about Bon Jovi, of which she is a fan.
She loves Bon Jovi.
Right, we can do that because, you have a relationship. We have a relationship.
I have clearance.
You have clearance.
Yes.
That's right. Because I know where it's coming from.
Yes.
Right. But like a random person that I'm working with, questioning my blackness.
Absolutely not.
It was the grace of God that kept her. Amen.
Well, and in fact, that was your first job.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
It was your first job too.
It wasn't my first job. It was, amen. That's all you guys said.
No, but I'm just wondering, like, so what could a white woman? Because then I kind of wanted to transition from cultural difference into feminist, and I'm just saying, how can a white woman then help? Because we need allies.
Yes.
We can't fight this by ourselves.
Absolutely.
So what can your role be, or what can white women, what can their role be within the struggle or pushing us forward or helping us get there? Because if you can't address, because I got to bring up a point about during the uprising in Baltimore, some of the students, I heard some of the white students, their concern was that they didn't have a space. They wanted to have dialogue. But a lot of the black students were like, no, this is hands off, be quiet. And so I get that to a certain extent, but then when do you allow them in? And how do you put the guard down and say, you know what, sometimes it's just, they may have just a simple question, like, I want to understand, but my question may be offensive, but that's because I'm trying to get clarity. So how do we allow that?
Or I have resources that I want to give. How do I do that?
Right.
In a
and
way
so how do you navigate that, in that space?
Well, I think that Black people always get to decide to what extent they allow us in and are going to do the emotional labor of taking care of us and processing with us and giving us information and resources. I think the best thing that white people can do is to talk to each other. We need to do a lot of work in the white community about racism, owning our shit and addressing it. I also think there's so many resources that are out there. Use the Google machine, right? and read some shit and get some stuff together. And then maybe you ask for somebody, a person of color, a Black person in your life to talk to you about it, and maybe you offer to pay them for their time, right? Because you're asking a lot of them. So I think what white people can do, the biggest thing is do our own research, organize among ourselves, and put our money out, right? Support different legislation or what have you, organize against police brutality. When a canvasser comes to my door, and please, I'm not like an expert on this. This is just my shit. When a campaigner comes to my door to talk about what are the primary issues affecting you as a voter in Baltimore City, I always say the police killing Black people, because they need to hear that from the white woman, right? That's something that I can do, and I can also spend my money, whether it is from spending my money on a Black female-owned bakery, which I just did from my friend Yasmin, to where I contribute my money to politically or to causes, right? Those are the kinds of things that we can do, and we can wait until we're asked for our input by Black people, like being invited on a show like this.
No, I appreciate that.
Yes.
And so then leads us into feminism.
That is just absolutely beautiful.
I love it.
Oh, thank you.
It is. But this is why she's here.
I love to.
be
I love
but
to
you know
chat.
what?
But most importantly,
they don't.
the comment of what can I do in order to be an ally, you can go back to those who look like you.
Yes.
And tell them what they can do to be better to
And I
really
freely admit I'm not. It is,
really
and I am not very good at it. I am not very good at it. I own,
but it's a
I do not. I don't have a lot of patience. My mother is very good at it. Hello, Susan. I hope you see this on Facebook.
Hey,
Yes.
Mom.
My mommy.
Hey, Mom.
But Mary Margaret.
Yeah.
Hi. I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, I'm really bad at talking to other white people about this stuff. It's something that I pledge to do better because I can and I should.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of white women say how difficult it is.
Yeah. To just have the conversation
with other white people.
My
Because
mother's
they don't want to
yeah.
be seen as something,
Yeah.
like whatever.
My mom is doing something where it's like living room conversations with white people, and it's literally you have a small.
That's the name of it?
It's something.
I love it.
It's like literally bring
white people.
bring a little group of folks together,
Right.
little group of folks together to talk in a non-threatening, safe space of somebody's living room, and I shouldn't roll my eyes because it really is important, and I admire those kind of
No.
people.
We have to hold each other accountable.
We do.
We have to hold each other accountable.
But see, I feel like if you think about it within our community, we don't have no problem holding ourselves.
Right.
We
That's
call
the
niggas out on a daily.
That's the thing.
On Instagram, social media, like that's what we do. If it wasn't for that whole thing with Kanye West, that was black people calling him out.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what we do. And I think the problem sometimes I see is that, like you're saying, is that white people don't hold themselves accountable, and it's always us. Like it's never because I can remember growing up, my grandmother always. Make sure your shoes are this. Make sure you got like we always had to be together.
Yeah.
And so now if that's the burden you carry all your life, when people can just be free. The reason why when my child goes to a school like Catonsville High School where the kids don't give a shit about what they got on, and then you turn around and go to a HBCU and you got to be dressed head down to the nines and this, that, and the other.
That was something I noticed.
It's a total different environment.
Where are you? Like where are you?
Where you going?
I am in
Girl, we going to
pajamas.
class.
I'm literally in my pajamas.
We going to class. Slave every
It
day.
was like
But that was
too. Like that wasn't even an HBCU. But the students that came,
they came together.
There were students that came from New York City. I swear to God, had on heels.
And that's what you do.
I only brushed my teeth. I was clean.
You was
but
clean.
It was not.
But you're not right.
Makeup?
Shorts on. Now let me ask you a question. What's with the shorts and the sweatshirt?
Well,
now what's that look?
We are a people that are comfortable. We are people that are comfortable in the cold. It is part of our ancestry of Eastern Europe. The snow, trouncing around in the snow. It's how we show our toughness. With shorts and sandals. I don't know. I will say, now that I'm down here, I'm a little more accustomed. But yeah, it is something. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a
so
little
what
bizarre.
is something that you like wonder like what is with whatever? I mean, I know you got
with
your,
black people.
Yes.
Let me think about that for a second.
All right, so let's also.
She's been around for a while.
She's been around,
right?
right?
I comment on that because when I was at Syracuse, and I'm from Western New York, I'm used to the snow, all that. I used to stand in my window, knowing that it was about to snow, and see so many white people with the sweatshirt, the shorts, and the flip flops, and then it would literally be snowing, and they would be like, and I'm like, did you not
it
realize
doesn't make sense.
that we were in Central
It's
New
too
York?
many
Like,
seasons.
It's going
It's
to
too many
snow
seasons.
I know.
7 months out of the year.
Okay, what's the question?
I know my question. So this came up when we were talking earlier about the whole feet thing. So I feel like if I'm wearing socks or my feet are clean.
Wait a minute, we got to give him. Let's give him the context.
Okay.
So I had a situation. No, you didn't. You didn't miss it, sis.
Oh, okay.
I had a situation with a white woman where she kicked me in my butt. Now I know everybody like all the black people like whoa. Look at her head. Like I'm sorry, right?
I'm sorry. Wait, what?
And so I said I'm sorry.
But y'all were walking.
We were walking side by side, and she did a little side kick.
Oh, she did the little
laugh. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Does she think she knows you?
She does know me, but I don't give a shit. Like I don't care. Like you never put your. First of all, my grandma said keep your feet on the ground. Period. At all times. So that happened. So I had to go to our resident, white person expert, and that was Victoria. And I said, Victoria, what is this? And she's like, oh, that's white girl shit. And I'm like, I'm sorry because I didn't grow up around stuff like that. We just didn't do that with your feet. And so I was like, I need something. So anyway, so then I said,
that was an intriguing conversation for me because that was a moment that let me understand you more too, because I didn't realize
that I didn't grow up
that you didn't the extent of non-whiteness that you had in your life. So when I was like, oh, that's white girl stuff. You were like, really?
Right. I'm just like, I just sound like
yeah,
her
I
too.
was like, it's from circle
Exactly.
1985,
I didn't get it.
Yeah, so yeah.
So anyway, so that's the context that.
And then we just don't put our feet.
We don't put our
on
feet.
people,
No.
things. We
Right.
just don't.
But that is my question. So if I take off my shoe and I have a clean sock or a clean foot and I tuck my foot up on the sofa, why is that like?
Because it's on the good furniture.
It's on the good furniture.
Sorry.
First of all, is it plastic on the furniture?
There's no plastic on the
Is it
furniture.
plastic on the
Get your
furniture?
feet off my
I
couch.
actually would not put my feet on a plastic covered furniture because I can tell that those are folks that do not play with it.
Right. Oh, right.
It's stuff like that.
It's not plastic. It's a free, but no.
It's just
Yeah.
furniture.
It's
your
furniture.
people on
Like
the
your
floor.
feet should be on the floor.
And the assumption
Yeah,
is
that's
that
hard.
Yeah,
She said, "Yeah, that's hard."
you don't put it on the sofa. You don't put it on like the coffee table.
No. Oh God, no.
You know, like you just
Do
no.
not put your feet
Another
Right.
thing, I used to work in a child development center, and I would let the kids play in my hair, like not just their hands. They used to like rub like
And twirl it
bristle
up.
blocks and Legos, and I mean, and I don't care. It just doesn't. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
I'm-
Obviously, I don't brush my hair, so it's like not even. It's clean. That's it. But the black women I worked with were
They
so
were like, I
alarmed. like,
First
oh
of
no.
all, your hair is gorgeous,
Right.
and so you don't
It
have to do
really-
much to
yes.
it anyways. But our
They
hair
were
isn't-
grossed out.
But our hair usually isn't down and flowing. Like you got to get in there if you're trying to like.
Well, I
feel like
don't
they
want-
thought it was
first of all,
like dirty.
I'm sorry.
Wait,
I'm sorry.
let's
Wait a
go
minute. Where
back
were
to
the
the
blocks
basics.
at?
Like, let's go to
Were
the
the
basics.
blocks in dirt?
Exactly. Let's go to the
Ugh.
basics. Even if the blocks were dirty, you have the privilege where you can go and just wash your hair,
Right.
no problem.
Yeah.
If my hair's done
Yes.
That's right.
and you
That's what I'm
putting
saying.
dirty anything in it, or you're touching
sorry.
it,
That's
because
$100.
I have spent.
That
First
just-
of all, I have spent
And
a
5 hours
good
in the
12
salon.
hours in the hair salon.
That's right.
Good
You're not
12
touching
hours.
this.
That's right.
It might have been 24.
That is a big listen. Hair is a big issue
No, hair
between
is a
black.
huge issue.
I don't know many white women who would sit anywhere for 4 hours plus.
Well, that's
wearing
the.
hair.
Let me tell you something. So you see, my hair is braided,
Yeah.
and so a white woman said to me, "Oh my gosh, how long did it take?" And I said 5 hours. Oh my goodness, I couldn't do it for 5 hours. I was just like, I'm sorry, that was kind of
Yes,
fast.
you do. I
Because
work in
when
a
you get your
spa,
hair-
when you get your hair colored and bleached and
Exactly.
lightened, then
But it's not
yes,
braided.
you're there for several hours. Now, granted, it's not several hours of
On one
consistent
thing.
processing your hands.
And you wasn't sitting there
But
watching Nigerian soap operas. No. But
Having
what
dinner
you
and
were
lunch and dinner.
right. But what you were doing was still getting your hair done.
Right.
It's still like and I feel like it's a different
Process.
experience. Like us getting our hair done as a whole. Like I don't know what's the salon vibe.
It's for me. Well, yeah. So I do when I get my hair colored. That does happen.
It's a long process.
It's a long process. I think there's differences around the idea of cleanliness, and I think that goes
That's
back
true.
to
Yes.
privilege as well. That
Here she go.
We
Here
had
she
don't
go. She
white
got-
people
wait a minute.
generally
Emma, it's
speaking,
coming.
and there are some communities of white people that have had different stereotypes about them when it comes to cleanliness. But generally speaking, that hasn't been part of what's been used against us as a people
Yeah.
to hold us down.
Sure.
So I generally think, and I realize this may be what offends everybody,
Uh-oh.
that black people are cleaner than white people as a people, not individuals, as a people, and that becomes an issue, particularly when you share space, when you live together, when you travel, when you work together.
Right.
Those become a lot of the issues that
Yeah,
come
they
up.
do. Because I think about because I'm saying when the full plate spread of the caterer brings in the donuts and the muffins,
And
right?
it better be covered. This is
Listen.
another thing I learned from black women. Cover.
Emma.
You have to put a napkin.
I'm just
Where's
saying.
the button?
Put it all just right here
Emma.
and cover it up and don't let any air
Emma,
get to it.
I'm saying,
but no air.
Listen, hold on.
I was
The-
at a whole
the
event
catering-
today.
Hold on, let's go back.
on
Listen, the catering comes covered, right? And we all say, "Yay, we're having muffins today," right? And then I go to get a muffin,
And you cover
then
your
I
hand
see-
with a napkin.
and I get the muffin.
And then you
I see
recover it.
somebody take their paw and
Yes.
break
the
it,
muffin,
leave
and
the
put
muffin there, and then
I'm
say,
sorry.
"We don't." Why?
Why did
is
you touch
the
that?
whole-
muffin
And why
still
did you
there?
think that I wanted that after you touched
Yeah,
it?
this is
Look,
what
I
I'm
was at a
saying.
whole event today. There was a presentation going on, and anybody who has been to that, because I posted anyway, we're not going.
That's not.
We went,
That's not.
and they were doing a collective salad. And they had everybody kind of pitching in and putting things in it, and things had specific meanings, and it was a real, deep situation. I heard nothing. That's why I can't give you an exact definition of what the collective sale is, because all I saw was people touching food who hadn't washed their hands.
Right, and you
So
got
I
worked
literally
out.
stopped the presentation and took hand sanitizer and said, "Excuse me," and went down and
right.
excused myself and went back to it. And everybody was like, "Oh, thank you for," and I'm like, "Yes, because that's nasty." That's what that is.
This is,
Yeah,
this
something
is one
about
of those
that.
things.
Yeah, but so I was just trying to
Which speaks
understand
to
what's
goes to the chicken thing too.
Yeah, because
That
then
ties
it
into
goes
the chicken.
yeah with
Right.
the chicken because we were
Washing of
saying
the
like
chicken.
the
Wash a whole
washing
chicken in the sink.
right. Well, the washing of the chicken right, but they say you shouldn't. But
Right,
that's
you don't-
You
apparently
should
you don't-
cut off
that's
the
right.
access.
right.
That's right.
Well,
we-
I mean,
I
I'm
think,
just saying
'cause I don't
those,
cook.
to me, those kind of
Like, okay.
right. But
But you also
The question
have a little
is,
touch
I
of OCD.
often no, okay,
I mean, you have a
maybe
touch.
a little
Just have
bit,
a touch.
but I really sincerely
tell me what
want
she's
to
asking
know
right here on the phone.
is, I know there's a difference, like you
On
said,
mine
between
right
the
there. What did
cleanliness,
Sherry say?
but is it a idea of we don't have germs that most white people think of? Like
She said what? Oh,
To be
Sherry,
cute.
stop. Right.
I'm just confused.
Thank
I
you.
don't know. That I don't know. If it's maybe we feel like we can share our germs with the world because
Right.
we're entitled to the world.
But I think it really does go back, and this is just me, Quantum King, but I think it goes back to what you were saying, that like it wasn't used against us. Like we were
Yeah.
seen as dirty.
Yes.
Period.
That's true.
Yes.
So I think everything that we have been
We-
taught was
over-
about being
yeah.
better and making sure that
Right.
people see you as
As
clean and
certain, right.
together.
Yeah, it'd be
and,
flu season.
you know,
and
all
stuff.
those types of things. Before we even get into like the touching of the food, it was just let me make
Well, we
sure
couldn't
that
even have the food.
right, but we didn't have the food first of
Right.
all. But let me make sure that I don't look
But
like
you would
they
think
think
the
I'm
opposite.
going
Right.
to.
Oh, okay, I was thinking you would think the opposite.
No.
Because when we had the scraps and leftovers, that it wouldn't be as much of a.
But I think that's basically. I think no, that makes sense
Yeah.
because it is how we show up in the world is totally different because we have to be mindful. We got to
Yeah.
be conscious.
Yes.
We got to be
Because of
on,
historical
like,
trauma.
Right.
That's right.
Seriously. I mean,
Because
it's
if I
everything
show
we
up
do.
looking dirty, then I'm doing exactly what they think
So-
I'm going
so
to do.
coming-
Because that's how
I don't
they
have
see me
OCD.
anyways.
And you're representing your
I have-
community.
and I'm representing
Whereas
my whole
I am
community.
never,
I don't have
never put in a
OCD.
position, except for right here, to
No,
represent my whole community.
No, but that's a good point.
You know, and that's why
That's a
even-
great. Can you say that again? Because I don't know if everybody heard what you were saying.
You know, I said if that because we're representing the whole community. So
Right.
if I show up looking a certain way,
Right.
I'm looking this way for everybody. I
Right.
represent all black people, and that's why for growing up, it wasn't just putting your feet on stuff. Like we couldn't even sit on the like my mom was from the South, and we upstate New York. Like we couldn't even sit on the banister on our porch because that to her represented you are looking less than,
Yeah.
right? Like you're not taking care of your home. It looked dirty. It looked like, okay, you're sitting on the banister, you're
Common.
talking loud,
Right.
you're drawing attention to yourself. Like, no. So that it wasn't stated explicitly of be proper, and it wasn't
Right.
about being white. It was about respect.
Don't be the stereotype.
Don't be this. Respect your space. Make sure that your yard looked good.
Right.
Make sure, so that way we don't give you any room
Right.
to say anything about us because we're
Right.
not. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I totally get it. And I think that even I want to kind of go back to feminism as we could, because I think that also how we show up in that space is
Yes.
totally different in some ways. Like in the things that, because from what and I'm no expert in it, I definitely would defer to Victoria because I mean you've had experience in this area. But one of the things I have at least read before was just the goals of white women and the goals of black women always don't align.
Yes.
And so the idea of being a feminist, as you know, for a black woman to be a feminist, meaning they are against men. Now I don't know if that's the same for white women, but it's this idea of they're lesbian, they don't like men, they hate, you know, all of these things that it's about men. When it has nothing to do with men, it's about women
Right.
advancing their goals and what the things that they want to do and how they
Right.
want to show up. But it's immediately taken, especially when I feel like in the African American community, how we show up as feminists are totally different. At least I don't know. Now I could be wrong because I don't know. How do you feel as far as your experience of as far as feminism? Is it looked at as far as how do white men look at it, or how do they?
I have a different perspective because I was raised as a feminist by feminist parents. So it was never a dirty word in my household. It was never, I didn't really know there was a bad negative perception of it for a very long time, probably till college. Thank you, college. But I do think it's different because I think a lot of those same ideas exist around if you're a feminist, you hate men, you're this, you're a separatist, all these other things. But it's not seen, I think, as destructive. We're allowed to have that one identity as women and fighting for this set of issues as women, which is very different from my perception of what Black women face is needing to, maybe wanting to focus on issues as women and issues as Black people as Black women, and those issues and those needs are not always met, right? Feminism was started around issues of voting rights, right? But a lot of those feminists were willing to trade Black women's ability, getting the vote for their own right to vote. So that's always been a part of what's happened, and I absolutely understand why many Black women, if I could say, are alienated from modern feminism or from traditional feminism, and either do their own thing around womanism, aren't a part of it at all. I absolutely understand that because of how because of the entrenched white supremacy within the feminist movement.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I was just thinking back to when I was studying it, because I was a women's studies major in college. So when I was studying it, I did get that from Black men, literally everything that you just said. And so, but we would have a conversation about it, and it was one of those things where with a lot of things that we enter as Black women, that the redefining of it, so that I had to make it relevant to me and my life, and I had to make it relevant to thinking about my mom in rural America, and how does this apply to our life. And I remember sitting in class, this is one of those moments, I was just you have those moments that you just never forget. This was 20-some years ago, but I was making that argument in a women's studies class about how whatever it was that we were talking about, I was giving the example of how this applies to me and my mom, me and our situation. And the instructor kept pushing back, trying to say I wasn't understanding the concept, and I kept pushing back saying I am, but I'm trying to get you to see how this looks different in this setting, or to think about how does this apply. And it went on for so long that I just stopped, and another student came up to me after class and was like I understood what you were saying.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was often that, but I still sort of felt like I'm not going to let you own something that historically Black women started before you even came on board. Black women started feminism, we just didn't call it that.
Right.
So I'm not going to let you own this because we had a say in it long before.
Right.
So I'm gonna make it relevant to my understanding, and I'm not going to allow this to just be your thing.
And so I wonder if that, as you bringing up, people, this is now a thing that has this was already going on, and now you just kind of getting on board. And two things come to mind. One, the Me Too movement, where
started by a Black woman,
and then
Tarana Burke.
Yes, and when a lot of the celebrities came out, Hollywood started to come out, and then they brought this up, and then they, they brought her into the fold and say yes, she was the one who started and all that. But the problem was that there were many Black women who still are silenced, and not a part of the movement because of them being Black. Just as simple as that. Whereas now, because white women have come out, now it's like, okay, we're on board. What we need to do now, they taking people down left and right. Just left and right. Whereas women still go to, and I'm not, and a lot of, some of it has to do with class too, for white women. And so where women are still not able to jump on board or be a part or really take hold of the movement because they're still being silent. A lot of it because they're Black women or people of color, women of color. And
it's
so
just like me being in class. If you see me as a poor Black girl,
what you're saying,
what I'm saying
is not
is
right.
Not
it doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit with what your narrative is. And so I'm constantly trying to get. But if you say the exact same thing that I just said, now it's a movement.
Right.
But don't you think it's also that mind frame, that mindset that is Black women are more sexualized, I guess, than white women are. Like even when it comes to like Victoria's Secret and lingerie, we can have all the Victoria's Secret angels running down the runway with no clothes on practically, but when you put a curvy black woman in it, it becomes too much, it's too sexy. So even with the Me Too movement, it's like, well, what does she have? Like not
What
necessarily
does
what
she
she
have
have on, but it's like they're viewed a little bit differently sexually than they are.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but then I also feel like I feel like sometimes that's just women. It's always this expectation that, or this assumption that, what did the woman do? Yeah. I guess, but I get what you're saying, because even in, the dance world, Missy Copeland would say that the reason she was a little curvy, so it's like you're not you don't have a ballet body, or you don't have, because you don't, I'm not thin, or I'm not whatever, and because this is who I am. But now we're thinking of the shift, and now you want to take ownership. Now it's okay to be curvy. Now it's okay to have a fat ass. Now it's okay to have big lips. Now it's okay to wear the things that we were
and it's like, oh, it's okay,
and have braids, and it's now that's professional.
But it's valued particularly, when it's on a light skinned person with light eyes, or a Kardashian.
Yeah. Right. Right. And so that's the thing. It's like, and I think that clearly we Emma gets it. And I appreciate
some things, but I need to interrupt because I need to make it clear. There's a lot that I don't get that I still need to learn. No. So I don't in any way want to claim I've learned some things that I want to really claim and put out there. I have a lot more to learn as well.
Right. No, and I appreciate that.
We had a conversation once about family privilege.
Yes.
Remember, and that was and that was I think that was a moment for you that you probably had it before, but I felt it when I was telling you, because I was in thinking about. As much as she gets it, as much as we get along, as much as we have so many things in common, and this is not to say that all black people, grow up with this type of struggle, but when I tell you sort of about like the financial struggles, or feeling responsible for my family, or thinking about I don't have anybody to call, when stuff is going down, or being the one that's educated and feeling like you automatically get that. So when she and I were talking, and I was telling her about how the conversations that I've had with my mom and the changes that we've made around our relationship as it relates to what she's able to do to support me, to help, not support me, but to help me, and how that's just been, like, I don't have the privilege of calling my parents saying, hey, can you give me such and such? And that's never really been the case.
Right.
And so, or just having the support of your family in that way. And I was telling her how, like, a lot of times I have this feeling of not so much jealousy, but like there's a twinge of like, damn, like I wish I had that, right? And so I think, again, it's not necessarily a black-white thing, but I think oftentimes there's a disconnect there that, like, I don't necessarily have to explain that to you guys. Right. Whereas when you and I had that it was something that you were like, yeah, I never really thought about it in that way.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think, don't you think that, many of us, I mean, sometimes that has nothing to do with race, like you're saying. Sometimes that's just, class, your family structure, and that's just what it was. And, I'm sure there's across the board of people who didn't have that experience. But I think what it is that we sometimes assume that because someone is white that they may have had a better life, or if because someone is black that your father, was your father around, or was your this, like these assumptions that we make about each other, because in our mind and what media and what we just known and what we thought was that that's the case, that I don't know that someone had, like, you think that my white counterpart couldn't have a mother on drugs, or couldn't have a father that was locked up, or
and what we know, like when we look at the data, we know that the numbers of absentee fathers is the same across races, right? We also know that when it comes to, when we talk about money, when we talk about finances, we're not just talking about like how much our parents make, but we're talking about wealth, which is so incredibly disproportionate to white people because of inheritance, because of property, because of all these ways in which we've been able to gather wealth, often taking it from other people along the way. So when we particularly talk about what our families are able to do for us, that is a huge piece of what that particular conversation, which was incredibly instructional to me. And that's when I talk about the black women in my life, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about Asia Mukes, my best friend, who has called me out more times than I can even imagine. imagine around issues of race, and will continue to do so. And the other women, and particularly women in my life, who have taught me a lot, because I wouldn't have known otherwise.
No, and I think that's a good thing. I think do you feel comfortable calling them out?
Who? Them?
Black
Oh yeah, yeah.
No, I mean,
Especially
because
Asia.
I think we talk about our village, and
I do. I will not. I will not call Black women in my life out on issues specific to race.
Okay.
I don't feel like I get a perspective on their own racism necessarily, on their hair, on things like that.
you can't tell, girl, when
no.
are you getting your hair done?
No, but other things, yes. Their homophobia,
But
yes.
that's what's interesting is that because I feel like within the village, and for people who don't know, your village is your group of people who
Yes.
are around you who can say, girl, you look fabulous today, and say, girl, when you getting your nails done?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
all in one swoop.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
No, I
Yeah.
had that
One time we had a
experience
conversation
too.
about eyebrows. Remember I was saying we were talking about getting eyebrows waxed. We
I
were like,
did.
what eyebrows?
Yeah, I did say that
Like,
too.
you don't
Right.
have any eyebrows.
Well,
and I was like,
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean,
wait a minute.
yeah.
Hold on. I mean, that's what it is.
I mean, it's true.
We have been friends for many years. At that point, I just like to share.
I think that's just a relationship.
But that's what I'm saying. That's you can.
Right.
that's-
You can do that.
when
That's
you
what I'm
have
saying.
your
We don't
village,
gotta
you can
build.
have those
Yeah.
types
But
of
no, I
things.
had someone come to me, a white woman, who we were going to a meeting, and the meeting was predominantly like Black folks. And of course, we didn't start on time. And so in my mind, so something happened, like when we were like 15, 20 minutes behind. I'm like, come on, why we gotta be on CP time? Like, let's get this done. And she was like, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because I ain't want to have to
Thinking
say
it.
I gotta
But
tell
I
you,
wasn't
what I
gonna
was
say.
saying.
no matter how many Black people I'm around, no matter how many Black people I'm around, no matter what my experience is, the time thing is
That's a
there's
joke.
two things. The time kills me. It
Uh-huh.
kills me. I have a German soul, and I am there. I am 5 minutes early for everything, even when I try to make myself late. The
So
other
we talk about accountability. I would say when we talk about accountability. Whenever I'm meeting Emma somewhere, I make
You gotta make sure.
I'm like, I
'Cause I'm gonna be
try
sit there
hard.
waiting.
I try to get there before her because then I know, damn, yes.
Yes, you're right.
That's
I
a
mean,
win. It's
right.
a win.
There's one other thing, and I may never have this opportunity again. When you go out with wet hair, cold hair is not going to make you sick. Okay, only germs make you sick. Public service announcement.
Yes, it will.
Only germs make you
Hold on.
sick. It does not matter how wet you are.
Hold on.
No,
Emma,
coldness
I
and
need-
wet
I
will
need
not
to
make
see
you
the
sick.
data.
Like,
I need to see the research.
That's what a
No.
head cold is.
No.
That's where it comes
Right.
from.
Here go Black people.
No.
Wait a minute though. So Emma, you
I know y'all have reason to distrust the
Hold on.
medical complex.
Grandma said,
Hold on.
I
you need to see the research.
Listen, I know y'all have.
hair is wet.
It does not. Germs. Only germs can make you sick.
Listen.
No, sir.
Hold on.
No,
But let me
sir.
say something.
No,
Emma,
sir.
make you sick.
wait a minute.
No,
Emma,
sir.
'cause guess what? Guess what we already said as Black people. We already know. We diagnose
No.
people.
And
every day.
I'm also going to tell you.
This is what we do.
I also
We tell you-
understand y'all don't have any reason to trust the medical community given the long-standing
Yeah.
shit that they
Right.
folks have done.
So
However,
now we diagnose
only
ourselves.
germs can make you
So,
sick
Emma, we trying to tell you, don't come out with your hair wet, yo.
all the time.
Yo,
I don't dry
don't
my
Get a
hair.
head cold.
as
Get
a
a head
Black friend,
cold.
I had to check you on that.
Right.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
That's how you get a head.
Friends,
I need to see the
I
data.
enjoy you very much,
Not only do you have on shorts,
Right. It's right.
and we don't get sick. We don't get sick. Our hair is wet.
And the flip flops.
and you put your fingers in every food.
Right.
Talk about I can get You violated everything.
Exactly.
And we do not get
All
sick.
the germs
Because
that
only
you now
germs
have
get you
from Your
sick.
head cold that you
Right.
have, you done put in our food and we got it.
That's what I'm
We
saying.
don't have head colds
That's
because
what I'm saying. It's
Yes.
it's those kind of things that just make.
shout out to my mother, Susan, for teaching me about germs. She's an epidemiologist. Yes.
No, that is
No,
the truth.
it is the
That
truth.
is so,
And
I
you know,
mean,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's,
Yeah.
it's certain things where you and I that's why I appreciate being able to have. I think having this platform and being able to have a conversation because it's certain things that we just know and we can laugh about it.
Yes.
Where it's not, it starts off as being like, I think people can take it take an offense to it in the beginning because you just trying to understand or get clarity about something. But in the end, I mean, we all got our things. I'm
Yes.
sure if we had a Latina woman on here, she'd be talking about
Absolutely.
whatever her,
Shit, if you had a different white woman.
exactly,
yeah.
right? You know what I mean? So we all, and I think at the end of the day, we realize that, I mean, as women, we have shared things that we deal with, but then, of course, then those are broken down by culture and that sort of thing. And, of course, like class and, you know, I mean, not everybody, all of us have grew up in the hood. You know, some of us have had different experiences.
Absolutely.
And some of those experiences may be similar to, you know, to our white counterparts, but we don't know because we don't have the conversation. We just can't make those assumptions.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you coming on. Emma.
I appreciate y'all inviting me so much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this has
Thank
been
you.
great.
So we have to have you back to talk about sex therapy.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Look, and we'll dim the lights. We'll
Yeah.
have a whole
Candles. Oh, I will bring props.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so here for this.
Listen.
Yeah,
How can people find you if they need some therapy?
So I work at Freed Body Works in Washington, D.C. I'm a sex therapist there. I do have a wait list, but you're welcome to get on it. You can find me at www.
Get on what?
The wait list.
Okay, got it. I mean, she said she. I just want to make sure we clear. You know what they say. You know what they say about white girls.
I know, that is what they say about white girls. www.freedbodyworks.com. That's FREEDBODYWORKS.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. This has been
Thank
a
you.
great show. I hope you all enjoyed it out there in Facebook world.
Yes.
And
Hi, Mary Margaret.
And and on RadioOnFire.com. Nobody called us though. No. But we was just chatting away. They could have, but we just.
Is it over?
Yeah, she said it's over.
Yeah, we're done.
They did.
They
Oh,
did?
good.
What did people say?
What did the people
I've
say?
seen a lot of things like good topic.
Oh, good.
I agree. Amen.
No. Did they say
Did they say
sister?
sister?
Sister.
Right.
Are we? We're still on or no? Oh, okay.
No, so yes, you must come back to
I'd love to.
talk to us about sex therapy. I think that's very important too.
I'd love to get the viewers' questions ahead of time.
Oh yeah, that'd be
because
great.
we could definitely answer questions.
Because you know there's definitely something within race.
Oh,
when it comes to, so I know that's a whole nother. I know.
I mean, it's a fetish. It's race play is a fetish.
So, well, I wasn't even talking about that. Okay.
I'm about to say, she took that to a whole nother level.
I was saying
Okay.
how we have been taught about sex.
Absolutely.
And all that. So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
But you talking about something else?
We need to have that conversation.
We do.
Yeah.
So
I may not be the one for that one, but for the race play, but we can do the sex conversation.
Great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Emma. So I'm Krishna.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Kristen.
And I'm Emma.
All right.
Good night,
And we'll see you in a
y'all.
couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye.